All right, welcome everyone for episode 45 of the Unchained Vodcast.
Yep.
Chat box back on because I turned it off briefly there. Today we are talking about Beta 1 and the Dragon Circles, the last few juicy bits that we've gotten of the Beta 1 doc. I don't think it's done yet.
Nope.
I think there's still a little bit more to come, but that's probably, I'm wagering that's probably going to be the juiciest bit we're going to get from the Beta 1 doc for the foreseeable future.
I think so. That seems to be where all Beta 1 is going towards, and so the next couple chapters will probably be just a little more elaboration on some things coming up very soon, hopefully.
Yeah, I doubt there's going to be anything that's really going to drive us to want to do a whole episode about it. So this will be our last episode of the season. We are episode 45 now. We will take a break. We're pretty much out of episode ideas. So we will take a break for, which I think last year, this is around the time we ended up breaking for the season anyway, was December and first part of January. Like so which is pretty much a terrible time for people anyway, because everyone's doing holiday stuff. So we'll take a break at this point. After this episode through December, probably come back fresh just after the start of January, when hopefully Brand won't be ridiculously busy.
We'll see. And January gets busy.
Kriss can get his internet working back properly, and we can keep on keeping on. If by the way, at that point you have any other episode ideas, feel free to send them to me at any time. We can always use more episode ideas. We're 45 episodes in, and it gets increasingly more difficult to come up with things to talk about that people actually want to talk about. I mean,
we theorize about everything, so hopefully more stuff comes out that we can theory craft with.
If only you weren't going bald at age of 21, you'd be bothering me. But I'm already. Oh, I get it, because I'm already bald. Okay, if you weren't bald, you'd be making fun of me. That's all right. I make fun of myself for being bald. So today, Beta 1, Dragon Circles. I have to say, I was pretty excited with this for that reveal. What was that? Friday before last. My weeks are blending together. But yeah, about 2 weeks ago, sat down, really just told us how Beta 1 is supposed to work, which is something I've been waiting for from the Beta 1 doc. It's almost the only thing I care about in the Beta 1 doc. I'm like, classes, that's nice. This other stuff, that's nice. It's all nice to know, but really what I want to know is how Beta 1 is going to work, how it's going to be organized, and I was surprised.
A little bit,
not necessarily unpleasantly surprised, but so let's see, what would I have written here? I can't read my own handwriting.
Yeah, also true, Sacker, because I agree with that. I don't think it's going to be the exact and only way. I think it's just part of it, but a big part.
Oh yeah. So for people who haven't read the document, that's what I wanted to start with. Just a really quick overview for anyone that hasn't read the document, which I'm sure everyone here live has. But for anyone following on YouTube and getting caught up on all things CU, essentially, Beta 1 is going to function on a consistently scheduled basis. They're planning to have consistent tests for Beta 1 backers on the weekends so that they can try to have tests every weekend, but have them on a set window instead of an all-day Friday, Saturday, Sunday test. You know, maybe it's only Saturday for 2 or 3 hours, Sunday for 2 or 3 hours, or something like that, to try to push everyone, cram us all into one window, of course with hours for both US and European times, to try and concentrate the testing. Also, we're going to have this Dragon Circle concept, which is essentially a lore-based way of boiling down to having different scenarios for different Beta 1 weekend tests. One weekend we may be doing massive Saturday night sieges, where it's an open world siege, like what you would expect a test for Camelot Unchained to be. Other weekends we may be guarding caravans. We may be doing small group battles. There's just different things that they may test in different locations and in different ways. So that's pretty much the bulk concept of it. One of the biggest things that I really wanted in beta 1, I should say, was a consistent schedule. So that's where I was pleasantly surprised by this. I expected they wouldn't be trying for quite as firm of a schedule, and so that was, for me, one of the biggest things. I really wanted a consistent schedule, and so having it fixated into a single window so that we can have something, or try to have something every weekend.
The weekend's great, not this 2 p.m. announcement. Hey, random 2-hour beta test going on while we're all at work.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like we're still going to have those for the alpha tests and the internal testers and stuff, but for the normal beta tests, because we have a guild to run, and it's really hard to plan guild participation in beta when it's, oh, hey, it's Friday, we're going to do a test this weekend. Really? Okay. Let me make a topic and spam people and go, guys, there's a test tomorrow. Yeah. Nobody wants to do that. We're playing other games while we're waiting. We've got some people are raiding in other games. We got stuff to do. So with it being every weekend, I guess that's the first thing I want to start on, is what do people think about that concept of not only the stable schedule, but of having it focused into small windows on the weekend, where everyone has to test during that time, or you're kind of SOL.
I like the small windows. I understand why they're doing it, both financially on their end, because it is expensive to run servers 24/7. It's why they didn't do as many tests earlier on in this alpha stage, because they don't want to waste the money on things that aren't kind of concrete, ready to go for us to play. But I like that keeping it to those windows means that everyone who wants to be interested in this, everyone who wants to play it, gets on at the same time. There's no dead space. There's no, it's 12 p.m. and there's no one on, I'm not going to have any fun. Everyone's going to be rushing to get in on this weekend and do what they can in it.
Yeah, that's kind of how I view it as well. I mean, there's definitely the financial consideration. Running the weekend, the servers every weekend for 2 or 3 days, all day long for the next year, would be pretty expensive. I mean, who knows how long beta 1's going to last, but I'm assuming they're going to be in some form of beta for probably a year. So that'd be pretty expensive. But also, I mean, how many of these tests have we gotten into, and there's 20 other people logged in, running around doing random things? It'll be much more successful, I think, for testing wise, for testing out different things, if everyone's getting on at the same time. But having it open for several hours, you're not necessarily doing stress tests.
Right.
So, because those are awful. I hate stress tests. I know why they're important, and I try to log in for them, but they're not made to be fun. In any way.
My ID here doubts that they'll be able to stick to the every weekend thing, and I hope they do.
Yeah.
But I get that they may not be able to. I just hope it doesn't just fall into this Friday update. Okay, guys, the servers are probably open this weekend kind of thing. There's not a whole lot of time to prepare for that, as far as us wanting to schedule.
Yeah. Daedrid, I can definitely agree with your concern about the dragon circles, and that was going to be something I was going to talk about a little bit later as we get into dragon circles, but that is probably my biggest concern with dragon circles, is that some people that don't follow the game as much will get into some of these tests or see videos of some of these tests and think, I thought this was supposed to be a massively multiplayer open world game, but there's like small groups in here doing scenarios against each other, or depending on whatever the thing is that weekend, and that could be confusing for some people, for sure.
Yeah, on the same token, I'm concerned with people who do follow the game just kind of starting to take what is there as being rather definitive of how the game is turning out to, even though they've publicly stated this is not even going to be in the live game. Rather, I don't want them thinking that this is the game and that this is all there is to offer.
Yeah. Not luck, you haven't missed much, unless you're asking how far the game is in. But if you're asking how far the cast is in, we just started a few minutes ago. Let's see. Just going through chat and see if there's anything I needed to include. I also agree with my idea here. I don't think it'll be every weekend. I think that they're going to try to make it every weekend, which I think would be great. But surely there's going to be some weekends where something goes wrong and it doesn't happen.
Yeah.
They broke everything and it doesn't happen. Even if they use like an old version of the build each time, just law of averages. I need to turn my phone off. Eventually, eventually something's gonna happen and it's not gonna work out right. So
yeah, I mean it's pretty typical of them to hold off on doing an alpha weekend, even if things aren't kind of exactly perfect to what they want. So I see that happening for beta 2.
Yeah, I do think they have a little bit more leeway with beta 1 in that. Since it is, they're still going to have the alpha testers testing early things and the internal testers. I think the beta 1 testers are obviously going to be testing older content. They're not going to be testing the newest things that came out this week or the previous week. Most of the things that they test are probably going to be several weeks old. So for the most part, I don't think they're going to have to worry about new content coming in and breaking things so much as maybe occasional server problems. They do something that messes up the servers and, they've got some issue there, or perhaps they break something else that they're working on so much that they can't spare anybody to run the beta test.
Yeah.
And so they're like, no, we're not doing it. We're too busy fixing our own problems.
Yeah.
But
my
inevitable that there'll be some problem,
yeah.
I'm sure.
My idea here, I hope so. But with how it's labeled as old school, so it's not used often. So even old school players might even feel a little out of place with it since they're so used to the new school type of testing. So, but hopefully even they and new people understand it's a different and older way of doing things.
Yeah, that's always the thing. I mean, they keep saying it's old school test, and no one gets it. I mean, I won't say no one does, but there's always the group of people that don't get it. Even no matter how much you tell them or how much you put out there that it is, they come in and go, what is this crap, or what's going on with all this stuff? And to some degree, some of those concerns are valid because, sometimes they come in and go, it's old school testing, but this game has been in development for ages. We should be beyond this at this point. And, fair enough. But for a lot of people, they're coming in, they're just going like, they're just looking at it and going, oh, this is BS. There's nothing here. You're still just, you're going, this isn't a beta. I've been in beta tests in the last year. This isn't a beta. And then you go, well, it's an old school beta and we have to explain that. And they still don't care.
Yeah.
So to some degree, we'll always have to, until the game is launched, we will have to argue with that. Just my only hope is that once we're launching, we're not saying this is an old school launch, because those were awful. That is not a positive connotation.
Yeah.
Go my camera a little bit there. Anyway, got a little bit mixed around here. One of the things that I thought was really cool that they announced was the test tracking. That they're going to be keeping metrics on which tests you participate in, how many tests you participate in, how many hours you spend testing, all that kind of stuff, the number of actions you take when you're testing. I think that's really cool, not only just because people love tracking their own stuff and seeing how much testing they're doing, but also if people can actually see their own testing stats as like a guild. My guild has activity requirements. I can take that and be like, hey, are you participating in tests? Send me something. I guess it would depend on whether that's in game or not, whether or not they can send a screenshot. But if it's not, they could potentially view that, and I can see that and be like, yes, you're participating in the test. Cool. Keep on keeping on.
Yep.
Makes
or
things tracking a little bit easier.
I just logged in and stood still for 4 hours, and
it tracks number of actions.
Yeah, right.
You could have just stood there and hit your sword for 2 hours. You could have stood there and hit your swing attack for 2 hours, but that's really committed to wasting time at that point.
Yeah.
But also
that uninterested.
Also, as my idea here mentioned, realm rewards for participating in beta. They're outright bribing us. They're not even making a pretense about it. But honestly, I think it's a good idea as long as they're not the rewards aren't things that affect combat.
I don't believe so. I think they mentioned
I'm down with it.
Only. Yeah. I believe the word cosmetic was shared very quickly after that announcement in regards to rewards. I know they don't want to do anything that will either persist through live if it does affect things more than on the cosmetic level, but I'm pretty sure it's just cosmetics.
And now I have to add something here for what Zadra just said. He just mentioned not wasted tech for beta benefits. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if you mean that they shouldn't work on this for beta or not. But one thing that occurred to me is that this is potentially not actually a wasted development time. You know, they have to go in and they have to create these things to track players and what they're doing and the actions they're taking and which events they participate in. But that's how the rewards in the live game are going to work. They're going to have to track each individual player, the number of actions you take to scale up your power and get experience and all this stuff. Whether you're swinging your sword, you're doing this other stuff, all that has to be tracked. What types of events you attend. Are you at a siege location? Are you doing this other stuff? All of that has to be tracked in the live game to get your daily rewards. So this could really be the proto system for building up towards that inevitable live game system.
That's exactly what he was saying. He just commented on that. Yeah.
Okay. we were in the same mindset then. All right.
There you go. Yeah. On top of that, you know, it is a horizontal progression system, but with 30 classes, there's a lot of balancing that needs to be done, and these metrics are a shared system for helping Ben and any other designers who help him to really narrow down those balance mechanics and balance numbers to make things as fair as possible within their rock, paper, scissors system.
Yeah. And to answer your question, I do think some of these events will have limited participation numbers. As Sackrick said, I'm pretty sure they confirmed that. You know, there may be small group battles. Like some of the scenarios may try to pit 8 versus 8 just to see how the team-based systems balance and everything.
They mentioned 1v1s or one-on-ones. They've also mentioned free-for-all, even intro realm free-for-all. Everyone's just kind of doing their own thing no matter what realm you log in as. I think they even pre-generate your characters in some of these. So, well, I know they do.
Even though the ability customization systems are fun, it would be nice for some of the tests to have pre-generated characters to some extent, just because it takes time to get in game and then go, okay, now let me recreate all of my abilities.
Right. That's exactly what they're trying to avoid. It probably won't be all of them. There probably will be a persistentness in a couple of your characters that you can reuse for some of the tests, but
that would be a good idea.
Some of them they did mention in the doc that they want to pre-generate your characters with stats, with items, and just kind of have you go in.
Okay. I had forgotten that. So.
For some of them, not just characters, but classes as well. So if you have let's say an 8v8 team, they may try to pre-generate the classes, like you are going to be this class and this character on this team that has this exact composition, and test those compositions against each other.
Yeah, and Zadra makes a very good point that really this player tracking systems and some of the possible content for the dragon circles and everything is really opportunity to get very early iterations for testing on a lot of the concepts, even potentially a bulk of the content that goes into the game live. Certainly not the classes and abilities, but for the different types of combat and engagements and things that we can take part in. Which really we're going to get into. I did want to ask one question about the tracking itself and the rewards. And that is specifically, what types of rewards would people like to see come out of this beta participation?
Well, Old Boy wants the Sword of 1,000 Truths right off the bat, so he'll be getting that. Rewards. just for participation, obviously cosmetic rewards would be great. Given that a lot of the packages come with titles and other things, if you buy into them, I could see them maybe not going that route, but titles would be cool too. For founders, I'd love for them to award founders points. For founders participating in and helping them be able to spend those points on other things.
Because that already allows purchase of a lot of things that are cosmetic like this. One thing that I thought of that I think could be especially cool for something like this. We know that there are going to be like banners and things of that nature in the game. One thing that could be really interesting is if there were Beta 1 specific banner elements, not banners altogether that, oh, here's my Beta 1 banner, lol, that I'll never use again, but instead perhaps some different elements and things for customizing your banners that through participating in beta, you can actually unlock for your character or whatever and get access to. And perhaps same thing for cloaks. It's like something that adds onto a cloak, but doesn't necessarily replace it. So that then everyone still has access to most of these things live, and you can still use your guild banner or whatever. But maybe if your guild leader and stuff was active in beta, they may have unlocked something where they can have like a little flare on the banner that has a trim or something that people would recognize as saying, oh, they were doing beta testing. That kind of thing could be cool to, I guess, expand on or customize later game aspects and content and stuff in cool ways that would still recognize the beta participation. And of course, I mean, having like a beta 1 banner would be cool, but you would probably, I think, be more likely to use something that's just a modification to your banner that still denotes, beta 1 in some fashion. My idea here mentioned special gold trim for your cloak. You could have your guild cloak, but you also have a gold trim.
Blood trim, yeah. and yes, Sacrix, I do think that it shouldn't just be limited to founders, but as far as founders points, obviously only founders get those. It would be nice to see founders be able to acquire points somehow through testing, because there are a lot of things that require a lot of founders points to buy.
And it would also be a pretty nice way to further acknowledge the founders. I think to some degree, in some cases, some of the things that they've added and worked on, I could see some of the founders feeling, and I think I've seen some complaints here and there where they feel like, oh, well, whatever happened to our founders point systems and everything, if you're going to add ways for people to get custom stuff and different aesthetic things post-launch, then, what about our founder stuff? And if they have a way to, even if it's not a ton, but just maybe as an addition, all beta participants get access to this other stuff, and founders may also get a small amount of founders points based on participation that by the end of beta may amount to a decent amount of founders points if you're active or something.
Absolutely. I do think founders should be acknowledged through sticking with the duration of joining way back then and still being here now and participating.
I think it also might be a good way to get some of those founders back.
That too.
I'm sure by this point a number of them have put CU on the back burner and like, oh, it's there somewhere. It's still in development. I'll come back at some point. Anyway, Dragon Circles. We've already kind of hit on this a little bit. Again, they're going to rotate these different scenarios out into the game. Saturday night sieges. I can talk. I can use words. And other types of content. Just cycling them through the game. I think the two best parts about this for myself is, one, it keeps it fresh. Beta testing is boring. I've beta tested many a game, and after a couple of months of doing it, I am bored. You're doing the same, even if you add new content, for the most part, you're doing the same thing over and over and over again, and it starts to get kind of boring. Especially knowing that all your content's getting wiped at some point, and you're just going to have to restart over again. So I think this will help to freshen it, but also it really enables them, as Zadra was mentioning earlier, to test different mechanics and situations that they may want to foster in the game. Such as, again, the sieges, but then also they can do a scenario that's just a one-on-one fight or a small group fight to test different things out that they really need to test. And I think it'll enable them to, as beta unfolds, they can go, we need to test this specifically. Yeah. Let's make a dragon circle for it just to test that out.
Yeah, on top of that, they've been talking for the last 2 weeks about building tech, which implies they haven't quite gotten there yet, to allow multiple of these dragon challenges to exist simultaneously in the same map, in the same world space, and then the tech to figure out which one you're participating in, and all of it kind of live on the fly, it seems.
Mm-hmm. Now, for me, as we kind of mentioned earlier, I do think there is the concern that people are going to see these either new backers or existing backers seeing these tests, these Dragon Circle tests, and thinking, this is the game? This doesn't look anything like what an MMO should be and what the game should be. Especially because it's beta. I mean, when you're in alpha, you have that argument of this is just alpha, so it's not the game. But then you get into beta, and you're like, well, at this point, it's kind of supposed to be the game. Maybe in a very basic form, but it's still, the basic elements of the game are supposed to be there. And so I think there is a bit of concern that people are going to misconstrue or get confused by the Dragon Circle concept. I think it will help to have the Saturday night sieges, though.
Yeah. And in case it didn't make any sense, those will be happening basically every Saturday night.
Yeah, I have to disagree with Sacrix about having scenarios like Warhammer. That was the one part of Warhammer Online I hated with every part of my body. The freaking scenario battlegrounds, I hated them.
Yeah, they've talked about
battlegrounds in general.
I think they will be instanced, but still also kind of persist on the same world map as other ones that are also taking place. Because they are limited, especially some of them have very small player caps. They're going to have multiple of them going.
Yeah, that was I don't think they said that outright, but that was my perception of it as well. That's kind of the point of these. They won't be persistent. They'll be instant, so people can kind of get in and go pop into them, kind of like battlegrounds, essentially. And Sacrix, I can explain. It's personal preference. I like open world PvP. I do not like battleground PvP. I have played WoW. I have played WoW Battlegrounds. For the most part, I hated them. I have played Star Wars The Old Republic. I've played Star Wars The Old Republic Battlegrounds. For the most part, I hated them. I have played Warhammer. I played Warhammer scenarios and Battlegrounds, and for the most part, I hated them. I hate doing the same thing over and over and over again. I don't like it when the content is just this set circumstance that repeats over and over. I don't enjoy it. So I don't want the game to have it. The game is supposed to be. It was marketed as a totally open world RVR system. And so that's what I want. I don't want any kind of instant scenarios. I want players to decide what scenarios they will play.
Yeah, Rec, that's true. They do fill voids, and they do help people get into things quickly. Yeah. And I'm sure a lot of people, maybe Vellic included, can stand doing a couple of them here or there in between the intent of the game.
Yeah, I don't mind doing an occasional battleground in something, and there are even a very few of them I have enjoyed, such as Hutball and Star Wars The Old Republic. Not really a battleground, not really PvP, but I enjoyed it. It was fun. But again, I just don't like battlegrounds. There are some, like Arathi, Alterac Valley. I enjoyed that battleground for a while, but it's not what I signed on to CU for. That's for sure. And I will agree, Sacrix, that constant open world PvP can be boring. It can have problems, and there are times when it just gets to be not fun, which is one of the reasons why when Mark said, if you're tired of our game and you're not having fun with it anymore, then take a break and go play another game. We don't want to make a game where you have to grind for 20 hours a day. I was pleased by that, because if I get bored of the game, I want to be able to take a break and play another game without completely getting eclipsed by everyone else in power.
My ID, there shouldn't be another project going on, so these will be used for CU.
Yeah. Let's see. I need to update our move. I guess at this point it's less not really needed.
I do think the scenarios and these challenges will take shape somehow in the live game, not as the primary source of PvP, but through small events that are meant as areas of opportunity for realms to contest.
The one thing that I've wanted to see in an RVR game that they really have not managed to make happen for me, or at least, like, especially TISO, oh god, they failed horribly. They said they wanted to do this, and then they failed completely at it, is an RVR game with lots of small-scale objectives. And of course you can overdo it with that, but if you have multiple different types of combat you can get into in RVR scenarios, they essentially become kind of like small battlegrounds that you can hit up on occasion, except they're not instanced, and how someone approaches them is going to vary up each time. But, you know, like, TISO tried to do it with their farms and resource points. You know, you'd have the keep battles to fight over, and then you'd have these little resource nodes that you would have to capture around them. And they were essentially pointless. I mean, you could just generally roll through them and claim them, or not even bother.
No one ever defended them, that's for sure.
Yeah, and that was a problem. I'm hopeful that CU, with, you know, the mining nodes actually being important and necessary, with caravan routes and things like that, will have enough varied content to keep that RVR interesting. And yeah, if you play 20 hours a day, well, first of all, you need to get some sleep. But if you play 12 hours a day and you get bored, then go play another game.
Yeah, and you're right, Sacrix. It should be
take a nap.
A better system that they're trying to make to keep people invest in it, and their time investment worth it. So
yeah, but adding battlegrounds, I think, is contrary to the original vision and description of the game. In my opinion, that would be a betrayal of all the original backers of the game. That goes completely contrary to what they said the game was going to be like. Now, I don't mind necessarily, like, I think they've implied that there might be some sort of small introductory type scenarios or something like that for new players. Somebody can go in and, you know.
I can totally see these early Dragon Circle challenges make their way in through events that aren't player limited.
Yeah.
You know, if they have the ability to spawn sieges, they can just random server events. Hey, this particular structure that's been built by a player on a contested island now suddenly has siege weapons spawning around it, an event taking place, calling, you know, everyone over to attempt to take this over.
Possibly. I would say, honestly, I kind of see that to a limited extent. I actually see the depths as a sort of like a battleground scenario. It's something that's in its own instance that they kind of randomly spawn into the world, and people can run in and contest it from certain essentially set points to fight over this territory. It's if you want to take a broad definition, that kind of sounds like a battleground. It's still kind of open world because it is persistent, but yeah,
there are PvE
it's kind of a mix.
There. Yeah, it has PvE stuff in it.
Yeah.
Is that bad? We'll see.
I like it. I don't have a problem with PvE stuff. I just don't want that to be the main focus of the game and how people progress. Right. Because that's not the type of game it's supposed to be. Anyway, we're digressing a little bit here. One thing I did want to ask about, though, is with the dragon circles, what types of scenarios do we want to see tested in the game? Obviously, there are Saturday night sieges, so we know we're going to be fighting over some keeps.
Yep.
I would like to see like a 2-keep battle where you both sides start with a keep, and you have to figure out how to take over both keeps.
That's 2 wasn't listed. Easily doable. They mentioned 3, where all 3 realms start with a keep, and it's the last realm standing kind of wins, is how they mentioned. Not sure how well that will work. Everyone's kind of turtling to defend their own keep and not doing much else. It seems
like that would seem like a good way to test respawn systems, though.
Yeah.
Because they've got, there's 3 keeps, and somebody has to win, but if they, with the wrong respawn system, no one wins. Either way, if there's not enough respawn or too much walk back or whatever. So that would seem to me to be a decent way to test some different respawn mechanics for the game while they vie over keeps.
One of the ones they have on the dock, they're calling it the like pop to take over the pop or something, pop for pop. Basically, the place of power takeover, where there's a place of power and it's currently uncontrolled at the start of the realm or start of the match, and then all 3 realms are involved trying to take it over and then hold it for a length of time, which is basically identical to the Friday night fights. So hopefully, I mean, that'll be fun to get back into, but hopefully there's an addition to that makes it not identical to the Friday night fights.
3 points to capture, but a Dothraki 3-way map with keep in the middle. Oh, you mean just a map with 1 keep in the middle that everybody has to fight over? Yeah.
That was Friday night.
I think that's pretty much, yeah. And I think they mentioned that during the cast as well. They having everybody fight over 1 keep. I think they probably also mentioned caravan scenarios, like one team is guarding a caravan, while another team is attacking. I think that could be interesting, not just to see how it might play out, but also because it gives you, because if there's enough terrain, they can choose where to attack and how to see how they might use the terrain to their advantage, which could be informative for the developers as well.
I would like to see, I don't think one they necessarily mentioned. They did mention there'd be like almost like a Royal Rumble in the mines. I'd like to see something more crafting oriented, where if they have the crafter classes in, they have to go and mine X amount of a node and turn it in to a controlled base or whatever. And so rather than it being everyone going to try to mine, you can kill people to steal their, what they have on them, or prevent them from getting nodes that you can then get them and turn it in. And winner is the team who has the most of that material by the end of the time limit.
Yeah, that could be cool. Kind of like Packers just mentioned, defending the crafter, having something where your crafters have to mine and do things, and then other players might have to defend them from well, not stealthers at this stage, but people trying to sneak in and stab them in the back.
Yeah, exactly.
There could be a few different takes on that type of scenario that they could do that might be interesting, and be interesting for crafters, because some people don't want to fight all the time. I know Old Boy in chat doesn't really enjoy the PvP aspect of things and just wants to go dig up resources with his pick. So could mix things up and give a little bit of something for everybody to test. One thing I kind of would like to see that I think would be interesting for them testing sieges would be a siege versus siege battle. Not necessarily with keeps, just like literally giving you a bunch of catapults and going, have fun! You just start shooting at each other over long gaps. Archers and everything. Just basically a pure ranged battle. Testing out ranged combat and stuff. Well, Zachary and I have to disagree on this on the speed of siege, I think. Of course, I disagree with a lot of people on that because I think even amongst the three of us in doing this cast, I'm the most in favor of super slow combat.
That leads me to something I wanted to talk about, which Zajdred also kind of mentions this. They advertised in the doc that these would be roughly kind of 30-minute matches. That's kind of a norm and a standard. And Zajdred brought up one of his ideas is to do kind of almost like a quick build, rush to build something and then defend it. How, I guess, if they're doing all these metrics and testing and balance purposes for the test, if they're limiting it to such a short amount of time for these things, which I get as far as being able to do lots of them and keeping things fresh, how is that going to translate into an environment where it's supposed to be a much longer time frame to go through all of these processes? Building keeps is supposed to be a long period of time, taking them over a longer period of time, defending them a longer period of time. These 30-minute matches are not necessarily exact to the end play, which they're supposed to be testing this for.
That's true. I think that one they did suggest that these dragon circles aren't necessarily the end all be all for beta 1 testing.
Right.
You know, there may be other things that they do, or that may even be something that's tested in the second phase of beta. Is really the length of sieges and everything. But I do think it would be cool to have scenarios or longer scenarios or things that you can test out where the players can go through phases of gathering resources, building up defenses, building up bigger defenses, all while fighting over things in maybe like a 3v3 map or something. It might even be preset. Like they go, here's where your keep's going to be. Here's where your resource node is. All three realms are on this huge map. We're having set times to do this, so you have Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, 2 or 3 hours for each one. Whoever has the biggest keep at the end of the weekend wins, and they basically just roll the testing, and it might be persistent for that weekend. So then, like Friday, the people who could be on start it, and then Saturday somebody else continues it, and then unless you show up for all three tests, and Sunday again you just keep adding and fighting over it as a realm to kind of help build some of that realm pride concept as well, to be the victor for the week, the victorious realm for the weekend.
Yeah. Rec, yes. Understandable. Completely get that. But at some point, I think they'll have to look at the balance of things in the long-term time frame. If they're balancing numbers and stats for these 30-minute matches, that's a completely different scale than a longer-term system.
Yeah. And I definitely think they're going to focus on sieges first. Like Sacrix mentioned, the big emphasis right now for development is getting the Saturday night sieges going. And because, I mean, this game is going to be large-scale RVR. It's about sieges. When it all comes down to it, there's hopefully going to be lots of other types of combat we can engage in, but we're gonna be sieging keeps and stuff, so they've got to be working on that. I do agree with you, though, that as we did a whole episode on the timing of attacking keeps and sieges and sieges and everything, and that's a huge issue. They've got to figure out the timing and their methods for preventing night capping, while also allowing people to have stuff to do and not having people just sit there and wait for eternity to take a keep, because that's not fun. That's just boring. So I think they do need to get in there and test that, and I would be curious to know if that's something that is slated for beta 1, or if that's a sort of testing that's going to be in a later beta phase.
Probably. Rec mentioned beta 2 or beta 3. That seems probably right.
Seems like beta 3 might be a little far out for that. I mean, still fine-tuning it, but I certainly hope by beta 2 they've got a good idea of what they want to do for that.
Yeah. I'm sure by that point we'll be into more persistent contested island settings that are where the server's actually up for maybe even an entire week or something, when they feel more concrete about the things going on.
Yeah. And as actually mentioned, Cube does need more work, so
that's as soon as beta 1's actually out, I've heard that they're switching a lot of focus over to a cube update,
which it needs. It needs dearly. We need our circular structures.
Yes.
So there's a lot of different scenarios that they could do that we could get in on. Actually, before I go into my last question, did you have any other topics you wanted to bring up?
That depends. Is your last topic about siege weapons specifically? No. Okay. Then I did want to kind of talk about this magic mortar thing.
I'd forgotten about that.
They've totally alluded to the fact that they may just kind of really quickly throw in this magic mortar as their second siege engine, which uses magic as its fuel source. It's a cannon that needs to be operated by a mage specifically. It uses
I didn't hear that part.
Yeah, it uses magic and or soul essence to power it. If it uses a soul essence, supposed to last longer conceptually. If it uses just magic or blood, I guess.
How much rage is in chat right now?
It's supposed to diminish. Its power is supposed to diminish much quicker. But a mage is the person supposed to be operating these things. So they kind of alluded to doing that versus or the typical trebuchet kind of or catapult. And currently they don't have any catapult meshes that I've ever seen, and I watch the streams pretty frequently. So do you think that they're going to go with this magic cannon and maybe just use the Scorpion model to kind of switch around the tech that uses it? Because they said that in the doc, the tech's already built to do the magic cannon.
I don't think, with how they're going, I don't think they will use the Scorpion model for a magic mortar. The reason I say that is because it seems like they want things in beta 1 to look nice. And that would look very half-assed. That would look blatantly very half-assed. And I think they're trying to...
mentioned, they're trying to get to Saturday Night Sieges very quickly.
It's true. That is true. But I don't think magic mortars are necessary for Saturday Night Sieges. I mean, we've already got Scorpions. Now, true, we don't have catapults yet, and I would not like to see magic mortars replace catapults and trebuchets. I'm not completely opposed to the idea of a magical cannon. I know some people have in the past made comments very negatively about the idea of cannons. I agree that lore-wise, I don't really want to see cannons. A magic cannon, it's pushing it, but whatever. I'm not. It doesn't. Bug me immensely. I expected more people to be angry about it, and so far no one's really seemed to throw a fit over it. So that's good, I guess. But I don't think they would just take like the trebuchet model or something and put it in there. I do have to admit, though, it seemed to take them longer to create a trebuchet in the game than I thought it would. Like, I mean, they were spending weeks on that thing. I mean, it seemed like it was like 4 weeks to get trebuchet from art to in-game and working in any capacity. But that being said, now that they've put the trebuchet in the game and they're really working on the systems for it, once that's done, I don't think they're completely done with it yet, but once it's done and in the game, I'm assuming all they really have to do is change the ammunition type and put it on a different model. And the mechanics for how the shooting and everything work are pretty much done and the same.
Yeah. I feel the same way, Rek. I kind of always thought classes like the Flame Warden have the ability, all the mage classes really, especially the TDD mage, have the ability to act as kind of a siege attacker through the proper spell building and component usage. They have the ability to do a fair amount of damage to buildings. I thought that was the intent, but then adding in a magic-based siege weapon that uses magic users implies that, that siege damage is way up here compared to any amount of siege type components that a mage can do. Like they're just so vastly overpowered compared to any player character.
I think that's going to be the case. I never thought that mages were going to have siege abilities in that they were going to be useful for attacking buildings at siege. I more always thought that the mages would have like siege range abilities that would be useful against people defending the siege. Whereas, so they can stand back in the same area with the artillery, with the catapults and the scorpions and stuff, and shoot into the keep and hit people. And they could hit the walls, but they're not necessarily going to be doing tons of damage. Whereas, because really, if they could do tons of damage on their own against walls and stuff, what's the point in siege weapons at that point? Why even bother? You could just have mages all shooting fireballs at the keep wall. So I really think that mages will still have that super long like siege range, but it's really still geared more towards people than it is against structures.
Yeah, Rec actually pulled up exactly kind of where I got that from. The Flame Warden actually has a shape on a component shape on the website, specifically giving it plus damage to structures and destroyable objects. So I kind of assumed that there'd be a little bit of a choice between a Flame Warden being able to focus on more player versus player combat, and then being able to just kind of bunker down as a glass cannon and literally being a glass cannon.
That's true, and I think that there could be also. I think that there would need to be a scale of power in that. And that's kind of
absolutely.
Because like I said, if mages are as good at destroying keep walls as a trebuchet is, there's no point to trebuchets.
Right.
They're easy to destroy. They're expensive for resources. A person can just respawn and walk back. So even if you have a siege ability with a mage, doing a decent amount of damage to a wall versus a magic mortar or something doing 3 times more damage per shot to a wall, you're still gonna. You can hurt the wall, but you're a lot more than a fighter with his sword poking it can. Because technically anybody can hurt the wall, but
if the degree of that damage difference was as great as it seems like it almost needs to be, if players, at least mages, have the ability to act as a siege themselves, then the material cost for building sieges would need to be equally as high to really balance that out. What's the point of the converse? What's the point of the mages if you can just build a siege very quickly and very cheaply and do 20 times more damage?
Well, that's true. The siege weapons have to be. I think siege weapons have to be kind of expensive, depending on the siege weapon, but they have to be worth that. They have to be worth it for what they can do to the keep. They can't just be useless. They have to do dramatically more damage to the structures. But again, you don't want mages to necessarily be useless against the structures. You want them to possibly have the ability to still really contribute. So if you've got 10 mages all shooting the same section of wall with siege spells, it's gonna have an impact. It's going to eventually bring that wall down. Whereas archers shooting it are just going 1 damage, 1 damage, 1 damage, 1 damage. And people are just sitting there laughing at them with a hammer in the back. One crafter's behind the wall with a hammer, just going, "This is never going to work for you."
Yeah. I want to see what was it? The siege bombs from like Lord of the Rings style.
Yes.
Just run up to the wall and blow yourself up and watch it shatter into a million pieces.
And they have alluded to things like that crafters can perhaps create some type of bombs or something that maybe a fighter can carry up to the wall and stick it up there, because I think that would be cool. Fighters comes carrying the giant bomb with the freaking fuse going, and everyone on the wall is just like, shoot him. That'd be pretty awesome. I'd be down with that. Sacrix mentioned, though, kind of. He's talking about just getting melee ladders and running in there with heavies and just sieging the castle. I want there to be that option. I want there to be the choice of, okay, well, we can either siege this thing, tear down the walls, or we can just get 40 heavy fighters and jump and crawl over the walls and stab everybody.
Yeah, let's do both.
Let's do both. We'll see which one works, and then everyone will do that one.
there will be that phase where that one thing is like, there's no point in doing anything other than this one thing.
Yeah. But that's the beauty of the game. They can always go, well, do we want to leave it that way, or do we want to fix it so that that is not the only thing you can do? Hopefully they'll fix it, because I like having options and not having the same combat every single time. Oh, there's another melee group crawling over the wall. This game has become stale.
Andrew, you know, that might actually be an issue for some people. Maybe the castle is too good looking. Why break it?
Yeah,
someone
a pretty castle.
This is like the most amazing castle I've ever seen. I kind of don't want to attack it just for principle.
I want to attack it. I just take it and make it mine. I don't
go.
I don't want to tear it down.
Do as little damage as possible to take it over, so you don't have to rebuild it.
Yeah. So for me, the last question I had, assuming you don't have another one.
I don't. I don't
the last question for me to kind of wrap this up, which is only semi-beta related, but I wanted to look to the future a little bit, besides just what we do know right now about Beta 1, and that is because we always have to speculate on here some.
Yes.
What do you think will be the first class added to Beta 1?
Oh man. Jeez. Well, we have what three? The fighters, heavy fighters,
Archer, heavy fighter,
Archer,
and cleric. Or not
healer.
Cleric, but healer.
Mage is coming next.
Really?
Yep.
I feel like they've already tested Mage. I did think about that, actually, that they might put in Mage. For me, I think it will probably come to one of two things. Either the Bard, so that they can test speed, travel speed, with the travel speed buff. Though technically, I guess they could do that in a number of ways if they really wanted to. Or what I think really might happen is adding in the Devout. Because I don't think they'll be able to get really very genuine metrics on healing until they've got all the main healers in the game. They've got a healer so they can see how healing works, but until they add the Devout, which is going to be a launch class that has healing, how can they worry about time to death and all the time to kill and all this stuff until they know how much healing is going on? So
yeah. I think it'll be Mages first, and I agree with Sacrifice.
Mages will be the easiest.
Then Devout, I see for sure. They're easy to add, as Zaja just said. Maybe he wasn't talking about Mages, but Mages are easy to add because they've already had the precedence there for the Friday night fights. Mages, a Mage type class existed. So I think Mages and then the Devout would be the first hybrid class.
And I think it is possible because Mages are easy to put in, or I assume they would be easy to put in because they've already been in the tests. They still need to test air more. And also, the flip side of what I said about the healing. How can you test healing without all the main healers in there, the main types of healing? But also, how can you test healing and damage without the main damage-dealing types? You've got Archer and Heavy Fighter, but until you've got some more of that ranged combat damage coming in with the specific Mage, like AoEs and different things that they have, and that they're really long-range damage, how can you can't really test. I wouldn't think you can really get a lot of good data on that until you've got both.
Yeah, and actually, Sacrix, I actually think they have things in place for healers, and I think healers in particular are something they've kept very much hidden behind the scenes, and that they just don't want to talk about because there are so many things that go along with them that they don't want to talk about, such as healer vision and
people like complaining about healers.
Yeah, so I think they're actually in a much further spot with healers than they've ever even talked about or alluded to.
I'm not sure what you mean by you can't reward movement speed, Supermax. Well, even 1% boost is overkill for melee versus melee fight. Will always catch up the other. I mean, there's gonna be speed boosts. That's already confirmed. Though for most people, it is not combat speed boosts. It's travel speed boosts for like the support classes. They generally don't, I think, have any particular combat speed boosts except for the TDD, which do have a combat capable speed boost as well. Though even that one I think is mainly intended for escaping combat, not really engaging in combat.
In response against Acrix, I would imagine that they've been fully aware of this Dragon Circle thing for some time, even though Mark did write the lore specifically for it, like the day he did that contest thing on the forums. I think that they've been aware that they've been intending to do this for a while, and they decided to update us on that information when they chose to, so they could be just as far ahead with healers and just be waiting to tell us at the right moment. I don't think healer vision's at all been talked about. I don't think they're ready for that, but I think that the systems for the 3 main healer classes are in place for them to effectively heal.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they have to be. They have to be for by beta 1 anyway. I mean, at least to the context of using the abilities that they put into beta 1. They've got to have some types of animations and things. And I certainly hope so, because they've been telling us we've made progress on combat animations for like every week for the last 3 months or more. I hope even longer than that, really. The last 6 months, every Friday update has included has just about included some type of animation progress update for abilities. So, what keeps shaking my camera?
Yeah, healer vision will definitely change things, but that doesn't mean that they won't be capable of healing. It just means they'll have to heal the old-fashioned way.
Now, I have to say, Rick, you might be right on the speed boost. I could have sworn that the abilities that they posted for speed boost suggested that the speed boosts were lost once you were hit in combat, for most of them. I could be wrong on that. I can try to look it up real quick, but I don't know if I'll find it soon enough. Let's see. Except for TDD, which I recall having something that they... Or maybe it was you can't activate it in combat or something. I don't remember. I have to see if I can find it here.
I absolutely agree that healer vision needs to be in ASAP if it's going to happen. And that the whole body part thing needs to be in ASAP if that's going to work. Because they need time to completely readjust that if it's not.
Here we go. Song of Speed for the Minstrel. Provides an aura that increases the movement speed of the player and nearby allies in their group. Damage taken while under the effect of this aura breaks the effect. So again, I'm not necessarily saying you can't use it at all in combat, but as soon as you get hit, it's gone. Now, I didn't mean to imply that you couldn't use it in combat stance, just that you can't really use it in combat.
Maybe, maybe not.
Yeah, and Grimslag, beta is there for us to be able to break stuff. We may get healer vision in and realize it is garbage and we don't want it. We may have speed buffs and realize they don't work right. That's kind of the whole purpose of beta, is to try things. I do like that CSE is willing to try different systems. It does also worry me a little bit because they come up with really cool ideas or really crazy ideas sometimes. And yes, there is a finite amount of time I'm willing to wait for this game. So too much delay is problematic.
We do like breaking things, though.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely, Sacrix. Would love to buy some resin information.
Oh god, yeah. Anyway, at this point we're just going back and forth with chat, so we always hang out after the recording anyway to do that. So I do want to wrap up things for the recording and for YouTube. These things take forever to upload. So thanks everybody for coming out and enjoying our last episode of the season, unless they make some surprise beta 1 is starting on X date announcement, in which case we will totally do an episode for that. I really don't see it happening until next year, so I don't think we will be having another surprise episode at any point. At any rate, that's pretty much it for our season, and we will catch back up with you sometime in January, I'm sure.
Probably.
Most likely. So thanks everybody, and if you're on YouTube watching this, then
like
comment, a video,
subscribe,
drop a comment, etc.